There was a countdown. There was a countdown. There was a countdown. I don't know if that was T minus 30 seconds. Oh, where's Donna? That's funny. I had this crazy idea. You might be waiting for me, Bill. That's cool. Hi, everybody. That's right. I'm holding my Apple Pencil today because I'm using my pen for something else. Oddly enough, not writing. Before anybody asks, I have hit record. John McKee doing the roll call like he does. There's John. There's Roger H. There's Hank. There's Bill K. There's Webb. There's Brian F. Frank, Derek, Andrew, Eugene, Ryan, Donna, and Nabil. Ready for action. It's like we're playing The Feud. How are you, my love? Okay, there we go. That's my Richard Dawson. Actually, I do a better Richard Dawson from The Running Man, but, that wouldn't have made sense in this context. Cool. 4 people. Whoops. 6 people have dropped off since we started. So let's do a thing, shall we? And yes, by the way, I am recording. No, not using it. It's funny, Nabil. I'm not using it to rewind. I've gotten to the end of my notebook. You know, the notebook that you see me hold up here every now and then? Gotten to the end of the notebook, so it's not staying down. So my pen is actually holding down my notebook, which means I can't write in it, nor can I use it as a wave it at you prop. But it's holding things down, and that's good. It's like the man in pen form. Got a horrible story about the man coming up. Not Portugal, the man. I like him. Right, let's really do a thing now. Lemmings or Starlings, we're all in this together. It is Monday, the 8th of February, 2021, and this is macOS Ken Live. Hey, y'all. How's it going? I'm Ken Ray. Thank you very much for joining us for this thing that we do every Monday through Friday, most Mondays through Fridays anyway, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. It is called macOS Ken Live, an offshoot of the daily Apple news and news related to Apple News show that I do called macOS Ken. Which is a thing that happens. We do 2 topics here, generally speaking. Second half of today's show, I'm going to talk about some tough times for accessory makers. Reportedly, there are reportedly tough times for Apple accessory makers, or not Apple accessory makers, but people who sell on Apple's site or people who sell in Apple retail stores. It's not a great story, but right now it's only a story. We'll talk about more of that in the second half of the show. We'll also talk more about it. First half of the show, though, let's talk about rumors. Let's not talk about the rumors. Let's talk about rumors, not specific ones. So when I said at the top of the show, Lemmings or Starlings, I was trying to figure out, what's the best way to sort of identify how we treat rumors. Because if you heard today's macOS Ken, you now know that Apple and Hyundai and Kia are no longer making a car, except I can't for the life of me see where Hyundai or Kia said that. But we'll get to it. I was trying to figure out, are we Starlings or are we Lemmings in the whole rumor thing? And I learned something absolutely horrific about Lemmings. I had heard this thing about Starlings. This is from the website Science Norway. Scientists at the University of Warwick conducted a study in 2014 in which they created a computer simulation of starling flocks fleeing a bird of prey. Their study indicated that the aerial formations made by the birds change constantly and give each bird an optimal view of the surroundings. Okay. Another study has shown that the birds act in accordance with the closest 7 other starlings as the flock performs its impressively rapid and synchronized acrobatic tricks in the sky. There's a little bit of a starling thing there, I think. Somebody prints something, somebody else prints it, suddenly everybody's printing it, and so we all go in that direction until somebody comes up with something else and says, "Whoa, no, wait a minute, that's not true." And everybody's like, "Oh, wait, you're right, that's not true." And so we all fly in that direction. And then somebody else comes and says, and you get the idea. So we all just kind of follow each other around. And what I found myself wondering is, do we, like lemmings, follow each other off a cliff? And then it occurred to me, why do we all think that? And is that true? And that's part of the whole rumor thing. I didn't want to just sit here and say, so are we starlings flying beautifully, or are we like lemmings just, killing ourselves going off a cliff? And so I did the crazy thing of looking that up. Do you know that lemmings don't actually kill themselves unless there is a major corporation pushing them to do it? This is from Britannica.com. And here's the thing, at some point you got to trust somebody, right? Britannica.com has been a purveyor of knowledge since 1748. Now, I will grant you, in 1748, we believe that, humors were best dealt with by, you know, a good lichen. Still, they've been in the knowledge business for, 200 plus years, nearly 300 years. So we're going to go with what they have to say here. And I'll look it up someplace else and check it, because part of this whole thing is about how pedantic I can be. I know. All right. This is from the website Britannica.com. Lemmings do not commit suicide. This is actually an article about whether lemmings do commit suicide and what they say, and they have it in bold. Lemmings do not commit suicide. However, this particular myth is based on some actual lemming behaviors. They have a large population boom every 3 or 4 years. When the concentration of lemmings gets too high in one area, a large group will set out looking for a new home, but they can swim. So even if they come to a river or lake, you know, they may try to cross it. Inevitably, says Britannica, a few individuals drown, but it's hardly suicide. So why is the myth of mass lemming suicide so widely believed? Well, it provides an irresistible metaphor for human behavior. Someone who blindly follows a crowd, maybe even towards catastrophe, is called a lemming. Over the past century, the myth has been invoked to express modern anxieties about how individuality can be submerged and destroyed by mass phenomena such as political movements or consumer culture. This is the part, though, that blew my mind. The biggest reason why this myth endures: deliberate fraud. For the 1958 Disney nature film White Wilderness, filmmakers, eager for dramatic footage, staged a lemming death plunge, pushing dozens of lemmings off a cliff while cameras were rolling. The images, shocking at the time for what they seemed to show about the cruelty of nature, and shocking now for what they actually show about the cruelty of humans, convinced several generations of moviegoers that these little rodents do in fact possess a bizarre instinct to destroy themselves. Right? That blew my mind. So you're welcome, and I'm sorry, or I'm sorry and you're welcome, whichever one you want to do. So what does all this have to do with what we're talking about? Well, for over a week now, I guess actually since right around Christmas was when the first story re-hit, when all of a sudden we were hearing more about the Apple Car. Over the past several weeks, we have known so many things to be true about Apple Car. And going back and looking at it all, and this again is where I say I can be pedantic, we haven't known anything about any of it at any point. Little bits would turn up where it's like, oh, well, I heard this. Oh, and somebody else heard this. And it was reported in this news organization in Korea, which, of course, is where Hyundai and Kia are, or where they're headquartered anyway. So it must be true. So we went from, I had it all written down. Hold on. There we go. Hyundai executives actually said that they were in talks with Apple to build a car. And it was later that day that Hyundai executives came back and reissued their statement. Didn't say they were talking to Apple. They said they were talking to lots of companies about building a car. And nobody at that point said, well, that obviously means that Hyundai is not talking to Apple. What they thought was, wow, Hyundai had its backside handed to it by Apple for speaking out of turn, the kind of thing that used to lose them contracts, not Hyundai, but anybody. Anybody who came out and said, yeah, we're working with Apple on this thing, all of a sudden the next thing you would hear is they're no longer working with Apple. So Hyundai in the morning, back in December, I guess, or early January, came out and said, yeah, we're working with Apple on a car, and then came out later that day and said, did we say Apple? We meant lots of companies. And we're not naming names anymore. And yet the story persisted. The story persisted. Last week, we had Hyundai executives saying, internally, we're not really sure this is a great idea. We talked about this on this show last week, where a few Hyundai executives said, We make the stuff that we make. We're the boss of what we do. Apple directs the making of the stuff that Apple makes. It is the boss of what it does. How's that going to work together? Or more to the point, one of the unnamed executives, and again, it's all unnamed, whatever, but one of the unnamed executives said, it doesn't work. You can't have two bosses. So that sort of, spread a bit of doubt. Then came reports out of the Korean press that Apple and Kia and Hyundai, excuse me, Apple and Hyundai were like, this close. And for people listening to the audio podcast, I have my finger and my thumb about an inch apart. They were this close to signing a deal that was going to see Apple sink $3.6 billion into a factory in West Point, Georgia, in the US. That is a Kia factory. And that was going to be, basically turn that plant into a Foxconn plant to make Apple cars. And then very late last week, Bloomberg had a piece that they ran that said, we hear that talks have stalled, so maybe this isn't going to happen. And then Bloomberg hit with a story overnight, Sunday night, Monday morning, saying talks are off between Hyundai and Apple, and they're not going to be making an Apple car. Now, this is where everything gets so freaking annoying. The headline from the Bloomberg piece, Hyundai, Kia say not in car development talks with Apple. But it turns out it is in a regulatory filing that Hyundai basically said the same thing that Hyundai said when it was trying to walk back from the Apple stuff, that they're in talks with lots of different companies. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the thing that they filed, but in the quotes that Bloomberg used, they don't say that Hyundai said specifically that they're not talking to Apple. What the regulatory filings say is Hyundai says that it's in talks with lots of different companies. But the headline from Bloomberg is Hyundai says they're out. It sounds again not like Hyundai says they're out. They're just not saying they're in. But for some reason today, that means they're out. Even though when they said it a month ago, it didn't mean that they were out. But, I'm just following the 7 people around me. So what do I know? In the meantime, Bloomberg ran another piece today, I guess it was. I think it was today. It'll be on tomorrow's macOS 10, so it's today. Although it will be reportedly, and according to so-and-so and thus and such, Dan Riccio is working on the AR VR thing. Now, we've heard that speculation before, but now Bloomberg says that they've heard from people they cannot name that, that's what Dan Riccio is doing. Executive Dan Riccio is focusing on the company's upcoming virtual and augmented reality devices after he shed his role as the head of hardware engineering, according to people with knowledge of the move. Last month, the Cupertino, California-based technology company said that Riccio was stepping down and being replaced by John Turnus. At the time, Apple said Riccio was shifting to a new project without specifying. That new project is overseeing the team developing future Apple AR and VR headsets, said the people who asked not to be identified, discussing internal matters. An Apple spokesman declined to comment. But it's true. All of a sudden, I mean, after we've all been like whiplashed and run through the ringer on whether or not Apple is building a car over the past month, some of those stories coming from Bloomberg, I believe. Now Bloomberg is saying this thing. And here's the thing that's most annoying. I go through like 20 different sources for macOS 10 every day. Different things. I've got RSS readers set up. Some websites I have to go visit because they don't have RSS set up. Whatever. That's fine. I'm happy to do it. Only one of those, I want to say like 7 or 8 when I was checking earlier, had this Dan Riccio story. And only one of them said reportedly in the headline. Only one of them said Bloomberg says. Only one. I came across 7 other ones that said Dan Riccio heading up AR and VR for Apple. He's saying it. And I feel certain that if I go in and read the article, go in and read each one of their articles, they will say that Bloomberg is reporting. And maybe they will also say that Bloomberg was citing unnamed sources. But you know what? People read headlines, and the headlines all say Dan Riccio is doing this. And we're lemmings. Being pushed off a cliff by Mickey Mouse, I tells ya. Anyway. I was gonna say I don't know why that upsets me so much, but I do know why that upsets me so much. It takes no extra. You're not even using paper or printing ink. A few electrons are mildly inconvenienced when you put in the headline "reportedly." It's one word. Rumored to be. That is 3 words. That's it. Because now it's out there as fact, and it may be true. It seems likely. But, who was it? One of the financial analysts pointed out last week that he could be working on the car. A lot of people don't think he is working on the car, but come on, reportedly. Ugh. Why does that annoy me so much? Because it annoys me so much. Because I stand over here and I'm pedantic. I'm the guy who says, well, now we don't know for sure that Apple is making a television. We don't know for sure. Lots of stuff. I don't know why that got me so cross. I don't know why that got me so cross, but I find myself, I think it was having the rug pulled out from under you. And the other problem is I'm not immune. That's the other problem. I think I said on this show Friday, I yeah, they're going to West Point, Georgia. And the thing is they may still be going to West Point, Georgia. There is as much to say that they are as there is to say that they're not, at least as far as I've been able to find. I know Bloomberg had their headline, but then you read the Bloomberg story, and there is no quote saying nope. There's only not a quote saying yep. But we've decided that that means nope. Even though a month ago, when they said the exact same thing, we decided, yeah, but that really means yep. Making me crazy. Yeah, that's what's making me crazy. I'm going to blame that. Hey, I want to talk about the reportedly difficult times for people who make accessories for Apple stuff in a moment. But first, I want to let you know about another show that I do. I can't decide which show I should let you know about, though. Oh, which one? I think we'll talk about in a few minutes because it was last Friday's macOS Can Live that led into the topic for this week's in a few minutes. In fact, if you heard Monday's in a few minutes, well, you heard part of last Friday's macOS Can Live. And just, over the weekend, I was thinking about all the different things that Apple has done over the past 15 years, wondering, as we talked about on this show on Friday, what seems natural, what seems like, oh, yeah, totally could have seen that coming. So I'm bringing in a few different friends to talk throughout the week about the same kinds of things. What has wowed them over the past 15 years? What's been the most surprising? And then if they want to roll the dice, what would they like to see Apple do in the next 15? Not necessarily predicting, although they're welcome to do that too, but what would they like to see over the next 15? So that show is called In a Few Minutes. A couple of ways to find it. You can go to macosken.com. There's a section there called shows. And if you click on that, you can actually listen to every episode of In a Few Minutes. Best thing to do, though, probably is go to wherever you get podcasts and look for that show. Either search for my name, Ken Ray, or look for the show In a Few Minutes and subscribe if you would. And listen away or listen at home. Just, listen. And thanks. So the second half of the show is one that's kind of depressing. I know what you're saying, really, because the first half was a barrel of monkeys. I was going to say a bowl of monkeys, but they'd be really small monkeys or a really big bowl. So Apple Insider ran a piece highlighting a report from the Telegraph that said that Apple is changing the dynamics of how it deals with third-party vendors, people who make cases, people who make things that don't come from Apple. And honestly, when you're talking at that level, you're talking about a big company at that point. If I can make enough stuff that it can be sold at Apple retail or sold on Apple's site, I'm doing pretty well as far as businesses are concerned. That said, there are some people complaining to the Telegraph. Now, complaining is a pastime the world over. That said, Apple just came off its most successful quarter ever. We've talked here before about the difference between saying Apple did that despite hashtag these uncertain times or because of hashtag these uncertain times. Apple is well positioned, I think would be the best thing to say. So, this piece from the Telegraph out of the UK says that Apple is actually shifting the way it pays some of the people who make stuff, cases, and things like that, things that Apple doesn't make, but that Apple does sell. It's shifting the way they pay them and what they pay for. This is a quote from Apple Insider. The changes include a change in how long a supplier waits for payment, increasing the time from 45 days to 60 days. Suppliers also have to accept a consignment model and that they are only paid once an item is sold. Which worries me. A lot of the accessory stuff, I would think, is stuff that you buy while you're at the Apple Store. I'm buying an iPhone. Oh, do you want to look at a case? There are cases over there. And at that point, I go over and I've already got the phone in my hand, right? Or in my head, I've already got the phone in my hand because there's somebody in the back getting it for me. So I might go over and I might, pick that up and, take a look at it. And I might go ahead and throw that in. And maybe it's from, I can't name any case makers. Maybe it's an OtterBox. Maybe it's something from the people who make OtterBox. I can't think of other case makers. I apologize. InCase. I think InCase is one. I can try to name other case makers, but you get the idea. There aren't as many people just wandering around the Apple Store handling stuff as there were a year ago. So I got to figure that stuff is harder for the third-party resellers, for the accessory makers and people like that. Also, there are lots of people who really just want, the full Apple experience. So if they're going to get a case, they want the Apple silicon case or silicone case or whatever. Or they might want one of the lighter cases, or now that we've got MagSafe, they might want one of the Apple MagSafe cases, right? So already things are probably a bit harder for those third-party dudes and gals, guys and gals, I should say. But now we're going to make them wait a little bit longer. The consignment model, honestly, is what worries me a bit more because, and I'm only basing this, and again, this is all reportedly, this is all rumor, it's all this stuff, right? If Apple was paying for it outright before, one assumes that they would be paying the third-party accessory maker maybe a little bit less for all of those things, but they're paying for it. Those guys manufacture that stuff, they sell it to Apple, they ship it off to Apple, they've got their money, and they don't have to worry anymore. If they're actually switching to a consignment model, that means Apple is taking delivery, but if after a while the stuff doesn't move, they're sending it back, and those people are having to eat that cost or find some other way to sell it. Now, maybe you could then argue, well, that shouldn't have been their business model. Well, maybe it shouldn't have been their business model, but if Apple's business model is changing and these third-party people end up suffering because of it, you might be able to say that's just the cost of doing business, but I keep hearing we're all in this together. And I keep hearing that, Apple is the richest company on the planet. And I keep hearing that they're doing well despite hashtag these uncertain times. Now, this is rumor. Feels like the kind of rumor Apple might want to get on top of. If it's not true, it feels like the kind of thing that they're going to want to come out and say, hey, that's not true. And if it is true, UGLY. That ain't got no alibi is ugly. That's what I'm saying. There's one other change that's interesting to me, and according to the piece from Apple Insider, the non-negotiable nature of the changes does at least mean that all suppliers have the same deal. That's not the part that I meant. Apparently, before they were able to work with people who would negotiate on their behalf. Where is it? Piece says suppliers are now dealing with Apple directly. Previously, deals were negotiated with distribution companies. Obviously, again, if you're big enough that you can sell stuff on Apple's site, you're big enough that you can have, business discussions. But I would think if there were like, one guy representing 5 different companies or one gal representing 5 different companies or one company representing 5 different companies, it can get the lay of the land a little bit better. And while that is not exactly collective bargaining, It's easier to get what you want from individuals if you're a company the size of Apple as opposed to, a group of individuals represented by one person, I would think, or one group or one company. I don't know. Whole thing it feels ugly. I know I just did that as a cheer a minute ago, but the whole thing feels, kind of ugly. And I really hope we hear something from Apple on it. And honestly, while we don't know for certain, I really hope that that story keeps going around because it's not the kind of thing you want to believe. It's not the kind of thing you want to hear. And, Apple is not immune to pressure. You heard the story earlier today about the DTKs, the developer transition kits, that developers were allowed to basically rent for $500 for a year. And then Apple came back 6 months later and said, we're going to need those back, but here's a credit for $200 to buy something from our store as long as you buy it by May. Apple just completely changed the rules of that game, and a lot of people complained, and a lot of ink, virtual ink, pixels, whatever, was spilled over that story. And Apple came back and said, "Did we say $200? We meant $500, and did we say May? We meant the end of the year." They still want the machines back, but they're sweetening the deal. This is a story that shouldn't go away unless there are answers. And it's Apple's business with which to do what Apple wants. It's an ugly story if it's true. Well, it's an ugly story anyway. If it's true, it's a ghastly story. Right, let's do a piece of feedback really quickly and then get out of here. I said last week that the HomePod Mini is a horrible alarm clock. And I said that for a couple of reasons. Turns out one of them I was wrong. I stand by the one where I said if you lose internet connection, you lose your you lose your alarm clock because apparently there is nothing on board the HomePod Mini. Once I tell it, "Hey, you wake me up at 5:30 tomorrow morning," and other things I would never say. Once I say to it, "Hey, you wake me up at 11:30 tomorrow morning," there's nothing on board the HomePod Mini that's going to do that. It's still receiving some iCloud something or something from some server someplace because when I had no internet connection, my HomePod didn't go off. Now, I also said it's horrible because you can't snooze it. Because when I said, "Hey, you snooze the music," it just turned it off. Well, Matthew, aka Gadget Virtuoso, hit me up on Twitter to say, actually, it's a great alarm clock for that. You just have to be careful how you say it. You say, "Hey, SIRI, snooze," and that will do the trick, he says. And I tried it, and it works. So now I've got two alarms that I'm like constantly hitting snooze, except one I have to remember exactly how to say snooze. You just have to you have to be careful how you talk to Siri, and do not mock it, and do not look it directly in the eyes if you can find them. I think that's probably going to do it for today. If you've got some thoughts on anything that I talked about here, I would love to hear them. Feedback, as you just heard from Gadget Virtuoso, aka Matthew, is a thing that I do. I'd love some feedback from you. So, a couple of ways to do it. You can leave a comment on this video if you're watching the video. If you're not watching the video, well, you'd have to find it and then leave a comment. That just seems silly. Why don't you instead send me an email? info@macoscan.com, info, info@macoscan.com. Thoughts on the rumor chasing thing? Thoughts on the horrible, horrible story about the Lemmings? You got thoughts on anything? I'd love to hear them. info@macoscan.com. Got in a few minutes tomorrow morning. Got macOScan tomorrow morning. We will do this again tomorrow afternoon. And I will talk to you soon. Stopping the recording, which I did start. John McKee says the show is over. So I guess it must be. We need music. We need music for the after show part. There's the start of the show. All right. John's got his text expander game on. Is that how he does it? Is that how he does it, Bill? I went Fleetwood Mac. What did I do? Rumors? Is that what I did? I don't even remember now. The Disney story about the Lemmings. I know, right? Yes, it was Disney. Well, no, Donna, I don't think Walt was there. Sorry. Uh, oh, that's an interesting question. See, John, that is actually a question that I will ponder. If we give up the metaphor about lemmings just because it's fake, what do we replace it with when we need to describe that kind of behavior? We could try people. I don't know. Oh, yeah, there's Bill. Okay, there's Bill. All right. A species on a planet that seems to actively work towards its own destruction. I wonder what we would use. Eugene says everyone knows that the car will actually be named the iPhone 14 Pro Max Mobility Edition. I like that idea. How many lenses? All of them. All the lenses, Frank. It'll have all the lenses. Hey, they are things going to have six. Well, no, I hear it's 12. Hold my beer. It's 18. 36 lenses. You look like the Fly. Yay. Okay, I get it now. Ken Ray is Ken Ray crazy. Yeah. Just be glad it's him, not you, John. Spec. Thank you, Frank. Spec. Yes, Spec is another and Zag. Although Zag knows I know they make iPad cases. I don't know if they make phone cases. Do. Roger says the consignment model is the only way he can get his stuff on the store shelf. I don't know what you make, Roger. You don't have to say here if you don't want to, but you can. But if you want to email me, I'd be curious. Ryan says Apple isn't the only company that uses the consignment model. Home Depot and Lowe's also use the consignment model. I'm not arguing against the consignment model. I'm saying if they were doing it not as a consignment model, now is not the time to change it, especially if you're the richest company on the planet. If you can afford better than anybody on the planet to keep doing business the way you've been doing business, I mean, they've actually done better business this year than last, probably because of hashtag these uncertain times. Now is no time to change somebody else's business model, it seems to me, when they have to worry about little things like, you know, keeping a healthy workforce and keeping people employed. I worry about anybody. There might be companies on the edge, and I know we don't know this, but I worry about the worst case scenario. Anybody who goes from if going from 45 days to 60 days on the payout might mean losing two people, not to COVID-19, but to an inability to keep paying people. And here's the thing, probably that's not going to happen, but who knows, maybe it would. I assume Apple is doing it for business reasons. For business reasons, somebody might have to look at it and go, geez, we just can't keep these two people. Well, of course they probably could. There's nothing wrong with the consignment model. Now's not the time to change things, I don't think. If we're really all in this together and if we're really all going to get through this, change it later. Make sure everybody's on their feet and that they can stay on their feet. I'm not saying they need to go out and start buying stuff that they don't need from people. I'm not saying they need to start buying a lot of stuff that they can't sell. But if they've done as well as they have to this point, if Apple is figuring out a way to save a few extra bucks in the stores this year, that way we'll be there next year. Sorry, don't mean to sound strident. Anyway, sorry, Ryan, if it sounded like I was yelling at you. Yeah, Nabil says he has a theory about the dev kits. I suspect that they found that the dev kits have some security flaw that could leak an encryption key or something, which is why they want them back. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's a weird pull, but yeah, that's possible. I mean, I'm not saying yes that happened, but it's a strange thing to request otherwise. I'm having trouble with that, Chuck. Chuck says regarding the consignment model, this might give other case makers the opportunity to get their cases in the Apple Store. If Apple doesn't have to invest money, X money worth of cases, it might open it up. Apple can. You know what? Apple could keep the same deal that it has with the case makers right now, who are counting on that for a hard 2021, and open up a consignment model to new business. Apple can afford to do both. It's not supposed to be a dog eat dog world right now, especially if you're the biggest dog on the block. I know human nature doesn't change just because it should. Apple is spilling tons of ink talking about all the good stuff that Apple is doing. They need to be held to account for the bad stuff as well if they're actually doing bad stuff. And I'm sorry, that's a bad thing to do right now. It is not a good look if they're doing it. And I know we don't know. And that's why I think the story needs to stay out there, because I think Apple needs to answer for it if it's true. Where did they say that? I don't disbelieve you, GT Mako. Where did they say that? Where's the quote? Because I haven't seen that. And if you've got it, I would love to see it. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I looked around and I couldn't find it. So there we go. I didn't realize it was ever called Joko Cruise Crazy. Yeah, I honestly wonder if he would record that song today. I mean, it's a funny song. I like the song, but already in 2000, what, 6, 7, 8? Well, 2005, 2006, I think the song was okay. I think today it probably wouldn't be recorded. It's one of those weird things. Kind of like Dumbo, but different. I'm sorry, you had fish at a Bob Evans? I'm sorry. Really? Because they do sausage. It doesn't even occur to me that there's anything else on the menu. Ah, God, now I want to go to a Bob Evans or a Cracker Barrel. Except no, I don't, because hashtag these uncertain times. But I might have to make biscuits and gravy this weekend. You didn't need to hear any of that. Pretend I didn't say it. Thank you, GT Mako. I appreciate that. Oh, okay, that second one, John, bothers me. Sea monkeys are awesome because you get to wear a crown and walk around naked with flippers on and a scepter. Yes, okay. All right. You guys, thank you for letting me go off. I appreciate it. Maybe we'll do something more lighthearted tomorrow. Maybe we won't. It depends on the news. It depends on what comes across. Um, and that wasn't me, John, so I can't tell you. Somebody else did that, and apparently I stopped saying enough funny crap. I don't even remember who that was. They just started doing it. So you should at them or not. Right. I'm going to go turn this into an audio show and then I'm going to go work on other shows for this week. Thank you guys for being here. I super appreciate it. This is still the best part of my day because you rock. Talk to you soon.